legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said, to Trump, but they're getting booty.
He said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsements from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign. Welcome to this special edition of Small Town Underground. Here with me this morning is Mr. Arthur Hampton, and he represents the John Birch Society. And so we're going to have an interview with him today, and we're going to find out just what is the John Birch Society, how does it work, what is involved. So welcome to the show. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we really thank you for making the trip up here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of move into the John Birch Society.
Well, a little bit about me is I grew up with a great disdain for communism. My mother, she is actually from Taiwan.
Wow.
My grandparents escaped communist China and Mao Zedong. In 1949, they immigrated to Taiwan. While my grandmother was pregnant with my mother.
Wow.
And 1949, that's the year that Mao Zedong took over. And so my family is, like I said, has a great disdain toward that evil ideology. And I joined the John Birch Society to fight against it. I was a member for several years, and an opportunity came around for me to be a coordinator and come on staff and to really fight in earnest. And I've been doing this for 3 years now, and
wow,
enjoying every minute of it, looking for patriots to come alongside us, partner with us, and fight back against this evil that's plaguing our land, and subversively so. It's what the Bible calls a wolf in sheep's clothing. Mm-hmm. And so they say, oh, well, that's I'm not a communist, I'm a socialist. Or I'm not this. That's not redistribution of wealth. That's crony capitalism.
Yes.
And what the shoe fits, it fits. It is what it is. And so pointing things out like that, exposing them and helping people organize things is what. But back to me, I graduated from Fruitland Baptist Bible College. I am a Baptist. Don't hold that against me. And I graduated from North Greenville University several years ago. And so I was trained to be a pastor, and I was a pastor for a while until COVID happened. And so I sought bigger and better things, or God had bigger and better things for me.
Right.
And so here I am.
Wow. Yeah, I'd like to come back to that, because there's a major push to try to be getting pastors involved in not politics, but standing up for what's right, to keep from letting this country slip into an oblivion, right? So I'm glad that you've done this, and you came from South Carolina, correct? So
Indeed.
It's a beautiful state. I've worked all over South Carolina, so I love that state. So I want to preface this with kind of the narrative, right? When we talk about, I know when you talk about the John Birch Society, I just want to kind of get it out there. A lot of people think it's an extremist organization type, it's kind of a hush-hush type thing. And I want to try to debunk a little of that. I think it's almost like the word militia, it's a dirty little word. And I really have done a lot of research into the John Birch Society. I know kind of the founding principles and what you stand for. So how about telling us a little bit more about it so we can get familiar?
Well, just to start out about this extremist propaganda, and that's just it, propaganda. Whenever an organization or anything is effective, you end up with a target on your back. Mm. If you're not doing anything, if you're not effective, you don't matter, so they don't target you.
Right.
And so I mean, and that happens even in sports. In basketball, when someone's hot, right, they double team them. In football, when you see a receiver is hot, and he's got a lot of yards, they double team him. The other receivers, they don't matter. If they're not doing anything, it doesn't matter. And so what has happened is we have been a thorn in the side of the communist movement and the Fabian socialist movement since '58. And since we were so adamantly against them and causing so many problems for them and their agenda, they targeted us. The first person they used to target us was William F. Buckley. And there's a book written by John McManus called William F. Buckley, the Pied Piper for the Establishment. And so he was paid a lot of money to run a lot of stuff about us and, try to paint us in a fringe thing and stuff like that. And so that was the beginning. But here's the telltale sign. How many people, conservative people, do you know that get a time slot on NPR?
Right. Okay.
That shows you right there where he stood. They give him this big platform, and no other conservative was on there, but he was supposed to be the conservative.
Right.
Supposed to be the conservative. And so that's kind of your telltale sign of things like that. He was being propped up to paint the society in a bad light. And so we, the values that we hold to are American Christian values, the Bible. We're not a church, so very interdenominational. We seek to influence the civil government in society back to the Constitution. Legislators, they all swear an oath to it.
Right. Supposed to.
Well, it's just funny. They swear an oath to it, and then they get in there and they do whatever they want to do. Exactly. It's kind of, and nobody knows the Constitution, and so that's why they're able to do what they do, is because no one knows what it says. They don't know what it means, and ultimately back to God.
Right. There you go.
And so we're ultimately a Christian organization. John Birch was a Christian missionary who was a Baptist. He was from Macon, Georgia. And he was a martyr, and he was the first martyr under Chairman Mao Zedong and the Chinese Communists.
Wow.
And because of my Asian background, I always make a distinction between the Chinese communist and the Chinese capitalist, because there was a Chinese capitalist, and still are, Chinese capitalist under Sun Yat-sen, who died, and Chiang Kai-shek took over after him, who people know who he is. And so that's the distinction I always make. People go, oh, well, China's bad. Well, the Chinese communists are bad.
Right.
The Chinese capitalists are different.
And when you think about the population, it's really a small percentage that's really running that country. You know what I mean? It's pretty wild to recognize that. So
absolutely. And so there's the distinction. There's a distinction there. And I forgot where I was going.
Well, we're talking about John Birch and being a martyr.
Oh, yes. So he was a martyr. He actually saved the Doolittle Raiders' lives in World War II after they crash landed in China. And so he was basically really a war hero. And that's why they killed him, is because he helped the American side of the war against the communists. And we keep his legacy of gathering intelligence. He was an intelligence officer in the Army, and we continue to gather intelligence on the communist movements here in America and exposing them. And you could basically cutting through the propaganda, because that's the first level. If you don't know what's going on, if you succumb to propaganda, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. And we're seeing that play out in real time these days.
Absolutely. And equipping people, equipping members with the tools that you need to get active. That's mainly what we do, along with exposing them. And so the propaganda machine is it's roaring. And that's part of the reason why we get labeled as conspiracy theorists, is because a lot of the stuff that we put out is ahead of its time.
It is, actually. You're right. They've been on point more than anybody I've seen, really.
Years ahead of its time, and time and time again we've been proven correct. I've got there's a friend of mine that lives in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he he's got magazines, New American magazines from 2000, from 99, 98. And he keeps them because every time something comes out, he's like, we were talking about this 20 years ago.
Yep.
We were talking about this 30 years ago. No one believed us, but it was true.
Right.
And I'll give you one example in, I guess, recent history. In 2010 or 11, we started talking about how the UN and the World Health Organization wants us to eat bugs.
Right.
And everybody was like, no, they don't. Blah, blah, that's conspiracy theory, yada, yada, yada. And then about a year or two ago, they just dumped $2 million in propaganda and advertising, marketing
Right.
to the normalization of bug consumption.
Sure. Bill Gates invested heavily amounts of money into this. I mean, yeah, it's a real thing.
And so now it's like, wow, oh, we were right. Oh, we were conspiracy theorists until, and you don't have to, I mean, there's no theory in it. All you have to do is listen to what they talk about.
Right. They tell you their plan.
They tell you their plan. I mean, Bill Gates has been talking about population control for 30 years.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he comes out with a vaccine that was implemented in Africa that was sterilizing girls. And it's like,
Exactly.
this is what they're telling you. This is their philosophy, and this is the result of their philosophy. It's not a coincidence.
No, and the conspiracy jar seems to be filling up. I mean, it's overflowing right now. We're losing conspiracy theories, are we not? I mean, it's crazier than I've ever seen.
Well, it's interesting, that term conspiracy theory. We can break that down.
Sure.
It's not a theory if they tell you.
That's right.
It's just a fact. This is what they say. Okay. So the theory part goes out. Now, a lot of times I can say, let's put two and two together. This is speculation, but I believe this to be true because of these pieces. 2 + 2 = 4. And I'll tell you that. But if they tell you, I want population control, or as Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset,
Right.
By 2030, or you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, that's communism. I mean, that's blatant communism.
Yes.
And then I got to thinking more about that statement. You will be happy.
Yeah.
Wait a
right.
minute.
You'll be forcibly be happy.
I mean, if I own nothing, that's not going to make me very happy.
No.
But you will be happy.
No.
Or you don't get to leave.
You sure? And case in point, 15-minute cities. I mean, we see all of these things kind of deriving out of these papers and these plans into like this one world government type scenario. They're wanting to take everything away from us. They want to destroy the Constitution. They want to take all of our rights away and basically enslave us. And I don't know how you might feel about this, but this oncoming singularity, like you mentioned, 2030, there's all of these things that seem to be coming in this pathway to really take away what we've been able to build here in this country. And I think the John Birch Society is one of the most effective organizations to fight against that. So at least I think that's what you're centered around.
Absolutely. And we're not a perfect organization. Only perfect organizations in heaven.
Right.
But we do our best. And we've been doing it for a long time. We're very effective in what we do. And I think that saves people time. A lot of people, what happens is they get excited. They want to do something. So they start an organization. They try to reinvent the wheel. They don't solve all the world's problems in a couple of months, and then they give up. They get frustrated. Or they, like you said earlier, I don't know if it was on camera or not, but you said, I get involved in the GOP, and then the rhinos in the GOP stop us, and then they get frustrated. And so there has to be a workaround for that. And Robert Welch was a brilliant man. He saw that the parties, they have to be a party, you got to jump through all these hoops that the government lays out. Well, jumping through those hoops makes you easily controllable. And so that he wanted a long-term solution, a lasting solution that would have lasting results. And so he started the John Birch Society. And I could talk a little bit more about that, but I want to get back to breaking down the word conspiracy theory. So there's two factors involved with a conspiracy. One, you need to have evil intent to conspire. There needs to be two or more people because they're conspiring with each other. I guess if you're crazy, you could conspire with yourself, but that's besides the point. The second thing is you need secrecy. You can conspire to rob a bank. That's a conspiracy. Okay. You can conspire to have a birthday party. Now, I don't think evil intent would be involved with a birthday party, unless it depends on what kind of birthday party you're setting up. But you conspire. It requires secrecy. So you need secrecy and evil intent. So we can see the evil intent. But I don't even think it's a conspiracy anymore, because they're telling you what they want.
Right.
You can go to YouTube and look up 8 predictions of the World Economic Forum. That's their goals.
That's right.
You own nothing and you'll be happy. You won't own anything, you'll rent it.
Sure.
You won't eat meat, it'll be a delicacy, and thus the bugs. Or,
even religion. They want artificial intelligence to write a brand new religion and put the world under one religion. It's insane. And they're openly talking about this
right.
stuff.
Right.
So.
And so, I mean, it's not a conspiracy in that it's not a secret. You see evil intent, but they're not hiding it. And it's not a theory, because they're telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how bold they're getting. And Robert Welch saw this. He said, toward the end, they'll get stronger and they'll get bolder and they'll come out in the open. And that's when they'll be the most vulnerable, is when the monster comes out of its den. Everybody can see him.
That's right.
And that's when we need to strike. I mean, we have a small reprieve here with Trump getting elected president. And so instead of just playing defense and throwing our hands up, falling asleep in the third quarter, we need to go on the offensive, because you can't win a war just playing defense. That's what the conservative side has been doing for the last, 70 years.
You're 100% right. Mm-hmm.
And so for those people that want to fall asleep, I say this: look at what happened 4 years ago when Trump was president the first time. He does a lot of good. He signs all these executive orders. And then as soon as Biden gets to be president, he undoes everything that he does.
Everything.
Well, you see something like that in a different form of government. Look at England. They have a monarchy. Okay. Well, they're run by the prime minister now, but historical is what I mean. A king dies, and all the stuff, his son gets to be king, and he undoes all the decrees that his father did.
Right.
Is that not what we have now?
That's exactly what we have now.
But our founding fathers give us this document called the Constitution.
Yes.
And as a side note, the John Birch Society, we have a workshop on the Constitution to teach you exactly what it means. Right. And how to implement it and all that junk. And so, if we have a Congress that limits the checks and balances, limits the president to what few powers he's really supposed to have, it doesn't matter. You could have Kamala Harris as president, and if they're holding her accountable to what limited powers they have, right, it'll make some difference, but not as much as it is now. Mm-hmm. And who knows who we're going to have as president in 4 years? Gavin Newsom? I mean, that's scary to think about.
It is.
But as conservatives, we want to fall asleep. We fought our battle. Let's go back to watching the Bulldogs play football. And
right.
I'm a Gamecock fan, so go right. Gamecocks. And so, and I like sports. I like football, but entertainment should have its place.
Sure.
Whether the Gamecocks win or lose, it makes no difference.
Right.
It might emotionally affect me, but it's not going to make a difference in my everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I get that.
But what they do here in Atlanta under the Gold Dome, that makes an effect.
100%.
100%. What they do in Washington, that makes an effect.
And I argue with people so much about that. They say, they're going to do what they're going to do. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Now is your time to be involved. You got to pick a lane and you got to get in it and you got to start fighting. Because we've already seen in Georgia with election integrity and so many different facets of the Second Amendment, we've made big strides in this state just from people standing up and saying enough's enough.
Right.
And that should be, even this past election, this should be a wake-up call to everybody that, yes, voting matters. Yes, you can make a difference. And we can't go back to sleep.
So what the John Birch Society does is we educate people on American values, the Constitution, the things that made our nation great. And if you have an educated electorate, you don't have to tell them how to vote. They'll know how to vote.
That's right.
And to that person that wants to give up, not do anything, I would say, well, you've been affected by propaganda. That's what they want you to do.
Right.
They want you to not do anything because then they can continue doing what they're doing.
Stay in the bread and circus and you'll be happy, right? That's what they want to do.
The Roman circus, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I know men all the time. I got a cousin, a diehard Gamecock fan. He can tell you every stat, who they're recruiting, what's going on, this, that, and the other. But then you ask him who his state representative is, he don't even know.
Right.
He might know who the governor is. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And these are the people that are writing policies that affect their checkbooks, that affect everyday life, that even affect what they can build on their property. I mean, all of these things. And it's like, how are you not paying attention to this?
Now, most people think when they think politics, they think presidential election. Now, on the presidential election, one person, there's probably not much you can do. But our founders give us a republic that has a decentralization of power, okay? And that is powerful. You may not be able to affect much on the national level, but on the state level, you can have more effect. And certainly on the county level, you can have a great effect on the county level. School board, county council, or in here we call it in Georgia they call it county commissioner, city council, smaller cities, maybe not so much, but Atlanta, Columbus, Gainesville, Marietta, that makes a big impact.
Right.
And direct impact on your taxes. And so county council, city council, school board, zoning and planning, all these things you can make an impact. I would encourage people to still go to the GOP meetings and make an impact. I would encourage people to go to the Democratic Party meetings and make an impact.
Right.
And don't count the Democrats out because they need to be educated more so than anybody.
Agreed.
They're deceived more than anybody, thinking, hey, this person's going to do this, this, and this for me. When the whole while they're stabbing them in the back, or not really stabbing, they got their hand in their wallet, pulling that money out in the back because all these social programs that they want to do, it's just going to cost more money.
Right. It's almost like the Democrat Party is fueled by just purely emotion. Everything is emotion. They believe that this person has really got their best interests in hand, and it turns out, it seems every single time it turns out to be the opposite way.
Well, it's very funny you mentioned that. When Kamala Harris announced she was running and Biden stepped down, I ran across a group of people in my travels. They were in Columbia, South Carolina, this particular time, and they said, well, I stand with Kamala. And I'm like, well, so I tactfully, was nice. I said, so she's vice president right now. She's in power right now. What policies did she implement that you like? You just pledged support for. What policies do you like? And do you know what I got?
Probably nothing.
I got Orange Man bad.
Exactly.
Orange Man bad.
Trump's a fascist. He's Hitler.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, to rein that in, I said, okay, that's not the question I asked. I said, what policies did she implement? And they said, well, it's not so much I like Camilla, I don't like Orange Man. I said, okay, well, if that's the reason you're voting for her, let me ask you another question. What policies, when he was president, did he implement that you did not like? Now, as an objective individual, there are a couple of policies that he implemented, that he signed, that I didn't like.
Sure.
I'll name you one. I saw your gun magazine in the back. He signed away bump stocks.
Bump stocks.
Okay.
Sure.
I did not like that.
No.
Now, here's a prime example of what Congress has. They overturned
They
that.
did. Yes.
That's what they're supposed to be doing with things that are unconstitutional. Now, why don't they do that with everybody else?
I agree.
Okay. But back to the scenario. Back to what happened to me. So I said, what policies did he implement that you don't like? And I got, he's racist, he's a fascist, he's Hitler, he's yada, 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 yada. He's a bad man. I said, that's not what I asked. I asked, what policies did he implement? And I got a lot of emotional garbage.
Sure.
And then I got labeled as a Trump supporter and yada, 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 which I was just asking questions.
Right.
You like her, you don't like him. Why do you like her and why do you don't like him? And it was a lot of emotional nothing.
Right. It seems like, for example, if you had a line in the sand, right? It used to be, Republicans, we had this line and Democrats had this line, and where it was 50-50, but it just seems like what you're talking about. If you even question anything, or if you even ask these kinds of questions, the line has been moved so far over that literally, if you're not in this emotional state of groupthink, and you're even trying to ask a question like that, you're automatically considered a extremist and far right, and I mean, like, it is insane where the conversation's been cut off.
Well, a prime example, and I mentioned this on my podcast, The Gentleman's Review. If you look at the town hall that Liz Cheney held for Kamala Harris, there's some interesting things that happened there. At the beginning, if you notice what they said, they didn't allow for questions. They said, we've already got some predetermined questions, and I hope some of those questions are those questions that you already have in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So they're planting, maybe some of these questions are already what you're thinking about. So that's subliminally saying, I was going to ask anyway. So I didn't need to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
They asked it for me.
Right.
Okay. But what I hear is, you peasants, sit down and shut up. That's what I hear. We're going to do this.
Yes.
You peasants, keep your mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hear.
Absolutely.
And so, and I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, look at the post-election, right? Well, I mean, she didn't even come out and give a speech on election night. She literally let those people just walk away from her little rally and didn't even come out. And I'm like, that is one of the most insulting things I would have. I've been extremely insulted. Even if she'd lost, she still should have came out and said some words. They don't care about those people.
No, even Hillary came out and said something. I mean, she had the courtesy.
That's ridiculous. But this is like you said, the whole group thing. They don't want you asking questions. Right. They don't want to be held to a standard. They don't want to be. They don't need to worry about policy. And that's, to me, the biggest. It's the most crazy thing about getting into politics is realizing that it's all a fashion show. A lot of it is, and that's you can't, like Donald Trump's first presidency. We never was able to even gauge Trump on his policies because we had so many things coming at us.
Right.
But my Lord, like, why would people not want to pay attention to policy? You want to go to a commissioners meeting and gripe about your taxes. Well, where have you been?
Right.
You're constantly playing defense when it's too late. Like, you should have been there a year before making plans to stop these taxes.
Well, not only that, but, and we teach these type of principles, building at least a working relationship with your legislators. Mm-hmm. That way, when that important bill comes up or that important vote comes up, they already know who you are.
Right.
You're not Joe Blow from the street, screaming at the top of your lungs, crazy man, the crazy uncle that always screams at the top of his lungs. They know you. You have a working relationship with them. And it doesn't take much. Take them to lunch. Mm-hmm. Buy them a cup of coffee. Build that relationship while they're out of session, while they have time, while they're not at the Capitol and they're in the hometown, And that way you text them, say, hey, this is bad because of this, this, and this. If you want to represent me, well, you're my representative, by the way. If you want to represent me, vote this way.
Right. That's great advice. That's advice that I need to be. I need to be more active in that, rather than just being a cutoff type person. I need to do that.
And that's one of the things that the John Birch Society does. On the local level alone, there's so many different things that you can do. I'll give you one example and then I'll go into it. I organized the people to go to a local school board in where I live, in my county. And we got several people to go. They wanted to spend $20 million on a girls' softball complex. Girls' softball, $20 million. Now, the town I live in has 1,800 people in town. $20 million is a lot. $20 million is a lot of money anyway.
Right.
But they want to keep up with the Joneses, that is the other counties around them, and so they want this complex. They want nice things and yada, yada, yada. But the problem is you have a smaller I'm going to say poorer because the other counties are bigger and they got more money. I know that's not politically correct, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so they want this, and that means we got to pay more taxes. There's less people, and we make less money. So the percentage of taxes has to be higher.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you had people come there in favor of it. Okay, and a lot of them were ball players. They even came in their uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice.
Sure.
And I organized people to go there and stop it.
Mm.
And there was this big back and forth thing. And I encourage you, you pay for these things. You pay taxes to go to this organization.
Right.
Look at how much you pay in taxes when you pay your taxes on your house. When you go by McDonald's or wherever, and you look on there and it says a percentage of tax, and then a lot of times it'll lay it out. This percentage goes toward the public schools. Well, we don't have public schools. It's government-run schools is what we have now. We used to have public schools, but anyway, that's besides the point. And so look at that. 70% of the tax I pay on my house goes to the public school system. My son goes to a private classical Christian school that JBS runs. And so I get no benefit out of that. Mm. Yet I'm paying into it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that gives me the right to go and give my testimony because I pay for it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, to you homeschoolers out there and the people like me that send their kids to private classical Christian school, you're still paying for the government-run schools, so go and give testimony anyway.
You are.
They're wanting to raise taxes to build a $20 million sports complex. And then they told me, they said, we're not going to raise taxes on you to build this complex. We have a $35 million surplus in the bank. And so they thought that that would make me feel better.
Right.
It actually made me feel worse.
Right.
Because you're telling me that you have already taxed me and you have a surplus of $35 million. Lower my doggone taxes. I am paying too much.
There you go.
But people don't get in that mindset. Oh, we're not going to raise taxes to build this.
Sure.
Well, I've already paid for it then.
Well, that's that little sprinkle, the sugar sprinkles on top. See, it's bait and switch. We have the same thing in Georgia. We've had a $6 billion surplus for a couple of years in a row, and all of a sudden now our governor is going to give us a tax break on our, for 2024. And I'm like, why? We just raised our property taxes for the school, our millage rates for everything, all across the state, but yet you have a surplus. Why couldn't you have paid? You're exactly right.
But that's what they do. They say they don't lower your taxes.
Right.
They give you a tax exemption that's temporary, and then when that goes away, it just goes right back up.
It goes right back up.
The solutions that people have a lot of times are temporary solutions. It's not permanent solutions. For example, the executive orders that Trump writes. He did a lot of good. He wrote a lot of executive orders. The problem is, like I said earlier, Biden gets in and undoes everything he does. We need more permanent solutions.
That's right.
But back to my story. So we stopped them from building the $20 million girls softball sports complex. And the only reason they wanted to build it was because, well, one of the reasons was they didn't have a bathroom. They had to use porta-johns. The girls had to use porta-johns on the field that we got. Well, $20 million is a lot of money to build bathrooms for the girls. I mean, what kind of bathroom do they want for $20 million? It better have a bidet. I bet it come with a massage. It better be gold-plated, ivory all over the place. I mean,
it's true.
If
all you needed was bathrooms, but you're going to build a $20 million complex, why not build bathrooms? I mean, it's ridiculous.
But what happens is the same contractor gets a contract to build everything. And so I believe, now this is theory, but it doesn't make any other sense otherwise. They get dark money to support this. Now, the problem with that is they live in the county too. So let's say they raise taxes, build a complex, and they take, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000. Usually it's probably less than $5,000, but let's say $5,000. Well, if they raise your taxes by $700 a month or $700 a year, You take the $5,000 and then what? 6, 7 years, you're in the hole. It's just like, it's the foolishness, just like Esau. He sold his entire birthright for a bowl of beans.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing. They're selling their birthright for a bowl of beans.
Yes.
And in time, you end up paying more because whatever taxes they want to raise, they live in the county too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy to me, is why do people, they want lower taxes, but then when they get elected, they want to turn around and raise taxes to do this and we got to do this, we got to do that. Like, you live in the county too. Why do you want to pay more in taxes? If you want to voluntarily pay more for that, go ahead. Don't drag me in with it.
Well, I think it's that short-term probably gain that they get right then and there, you know, and they're not even focused on the future, and that's what's a lot of our problem. That's what it is. It's these temporary solutions just to fix right now instead of putting in solutions, permanent solutions that fix it long-term. I mean, that's our entire state of affairs right now. Government, our debt, everything. So.
Absolutely. And maybe we can get into that a little more.
Yeah.
But the John Birch Society, on the local level, there's all these things you need to go to.
Okay.
GOP, school board, I listed them all out.
Right.
County commissioner, things that you can be effective. And one person can't go to all those things on the local level alone, much less what they're doing under the Gold Dome at the State House or the federal level.
Right.
One person can't keep track of it. So what we do is we form chapters so that one person has a little piece of it. One person has a little piece here. You focus on this. You focus on this. And then when something big happens, oh, they're voting on this. Well, we all hop in the car and ride down there. And when one person gives testimony, they can write you off. But when 10 or 20 people give testimony, 3 minutes a person, 20 people, that's an hour they got to sit there. Wow. And I've seen people orchestrate it like this. They have an hour speech and they just bust it up among 20 people and continue the whole speech among 20 people.
Wow.
That way they can get their point across.
That's awesome.
And that's the effectiveness that the John Birch Society has to offer.
So how do we get involved with the John Birch? What are ways we can get involved?
Well, I would first check out our website, jbs.org. There's an Act Now button and all the different ways that you can get active. Contact your local coordinator. Click on that. If you're in the Southeast here, it'll take you to my email. And I don't know if it gives out my number or not, but a lot of times they'll send me an email and I'll say, here, call me.
Okay.
And so get in contact with your local coordinator and what's going on the state level, because it's bottom up, grassroots bottom up. We get effective in this county, and then we teach the counties next to us how to be effective. And then you form chapters in all of the counties. And it's hard. That's a lofty goal here in Georgia because you have 159 counties.
That's right.
But one county at a time, we'll raise up chapters until we get there. And then all the counties come together and be effective on the state level. And then once we're effective there, we can help the states next to us, and then we'll be effective on the federal level. It's bottom up.
Okay. Well, good deal. We'll make sure to post links to that. How, if you're interested in it, I'm definitely interested in it. Plan on pursuing some of this. So hopefully we can get some engagement with our communities, and we can maybe start some chapters around here and kind of get into the fold. So
absolutely.
Well, man, Arthur, it's been great, and thank you very much. We'll probably have some more coming up, but we appreciate you talking with us with John Birch.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right.